Are we muted?
All right,
All
start.
right, again. All right, now that we're not muted, hi guys. Welcome to another episode of VTEC Academy's Midnight Oil. I'm Brian, that's
I'm Carter.
Carter. Yes, and we're here today with Ravi Tomerlin. He actually has a company called We Don't Lift. You do mostly safety equipment, correct?
Mostly safety equipment and then the race car performance parts in terms of that type of things.
Very good.
We focus on safety equipment because it's a huge market that most people don't understand, aren't familiar with. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of information that's consistent out there, so we really work on helping people cut through the fuzz and actually see what's important.
Now I've seen you at a bunch of racing events. Is this something, I know you do it here in Arizona.
Correct.
Are you doing it in other areas as well?
So obviously, as any consumer would notice, we're on the internet, so we're always available to anybody everywhere all the time. But we do take our products to the different racing events we go to across the country, mainly for Global Time Attack. Or the other one, the big one is the Type R Expo group. We're very in depth with. We're trying to make sure those guys are all happy and set up with proper gear. But yeah, predominantly local events, then California events is our mainstay.
Very good. Now, one of the reasons I asked Ravi here today, because I wanted to talk to him about safety generally. As you guys may or may not know, I'm a big safety buff. I would have to say that my Hans device definitely saved me when I was crashing my car at 178 miles an hour. And let me give you a point of contrast. When I had been racing first, I had an 89 Civic hatch, and on my second race, I was leading my group way out front, and I started experimenting around with trying to get the car to do certain things, and I hooked a wheel on the inside of a curb, and it shot me into a wall. So I wound up leaving the track at probably 70, hitting the wall probably around 55 miles an hour, and I will tell you, it felt like somebody just electrically shocked me in my spine.
People don't think about 15 pounds of your head in the helmet decelerating so rapidly and so instantaneously. You figure decelerating from as little as 30 to 35 miles an hour can cause some pretty severe damage to your body, let alone from 50, 60 miles an hour plus into a K barrier. The time of the incident is very short and your neck has to absorb all that
this was
energy.
a solid concrete wall with dirt behind it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was in 1991 when the Hans device wasn't really widely used or even accepted in most racing.
Yeah.
So, and I still have neck problems. I mean, if I sit at a computer too long, I'm stiff for hours. So, but it just amazes me that people who have a, full safety setup, if they don't wear a Hans device, I think they're just nuts.
It is, and it really comes into play as soon as you add those harnesses and bucket seats to a car. Obviously, a car that's got a 3-point system. Unless you're using those hybrid S systems that's 3-point compatible. The hybrid S is an amazing system. I mean, a lot of people don't even know it exists, but it's made by Simpson, and it's compatible with 3-point or the 5-point, 6-point traditional harnesses. So it's awesome for guys who they do casual track days, that type of thing, but they want a little extra protection. You get one of these hybrid S's and it just goes on like a backpack. You put your 3-point seatbelt on, and you have the advantage of having some form of neck protection in the event you have an accident. Because I honestly see just as many accidents in road-going cars in terms of on-track, HPD guys, as I do in race group. A lot of people have this misconception that you're safe if you're an HPD1, that you're somehow safer than you are in race group.
I crack up because I think the HPD3 and 4 guys pretty much think they're invincible. You know what I mean? They got just enough knowledge to be kind of dangerous to themselves, kind of thing.
Yes.
They know the line. They're getting kind of good at going fast, and that's when problems occur.
Oh, I tell you, because I manage the HPD group with the local NASA guys, and it's such an adventure every day, reining people's egos in just enough so they're having fun, but I don't have to fill out any paperwork at the end of the day, because I don't like paperwork very much. So it's always a challenge. I mean, it's definitely a parabolic thing. A lot of guys, for most of these high-performance driving enthusiasts, the driving experience is very parabolic in terms of they start off with very little knowledge, they're very humble, but by HB2, they're all of a sudden track stars. 3 and 4, their egos are immense.
Move me up to the next group.
Yeah, put me in the fastest run group. Put me in the fastest run
ready.
group. And a lot of times I jump out there with them and I watch them, and I sometimes have to calm them down a little bit, but they have to understand that the DE3, DE4 group is probably where most mistakes in the non-racing world occurs, because you've got some confidence. A lot of times your cars are getting faster at that point. You're strapped on some R-comps you may not have ever properly learned on street tires. And the graduation system is not perfect. It's as instructors and group leaders, we try to really watch folks and see how they're doing before we move them up. But at the end of the day, we really don't know how that person's thinking. We really don't know the full potential of their skill level.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen guys who will graduate into DE3 or DE4, and then the next session they'll stuff their car in a wall.
Yeah, I've too often I've seen a new Vet or a new Camaro or Mustang.
And we should probably clarify with everybody that when we talk about DE3, DE4, that's not a specific group of organization. That's just we're intermediate, advanced.
It's a general,
generalization.
intermediate, advanced, intermediate
Right.
type
We
thing.
consider DE1 to be your entry level, DE4 to be your higher level
Right.
driver. So just in case anybody's confused about that.
Carter does HPDE3. What do you think about him? I'm just curious. Oh, come on. I don't need to.
We're gonna pick on you. Come on.
All right, fair enough.
So Carter drives with me locally in the group that I manage, and the way I usually, a lot of times the way I determine if a student's ready to move on or not is if I haven't seen them all day. If I haven't seen you all day, I haven't heard any reports of you spinning off track, or I haven't had any other drivers complain about a particular driver, that's usually a pretty good sign. And last time you were out, I had no one mention the Prelude, except that it was fast.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. I mean, that was a good compliment.
It was enjoyable last weekend too.
Yeah.
It was a really good group.
Yeah, so I mean, in general, at least locally, our DE3 and 4 group is extremely competent, which a lot of that has a lot to do with the dozens and dozens of instructors and folks who are behind these people and keeping them reined in through the entire process.
You guys do a great job, and I love drivers' meetings after every session.
Yes.
It's great for conversation.
Addressing problems. I mean, I've been to other groups where they don't actually, the drivers don't even know each other. They've never met each other. They're just going out on a racetrack with people they don't even know and hoping it's going to be okay. And I don't actually go to those events because I'm not comfortable with not knowing who I'm dealing with. When I jump out with these groups locally, I know all these faces, I know all these people, I know how they drive, I know what their tendencies are, and it makes it a lot safer because I can predict what they're doing, and being predictable is actually probably the number one way to be safe on a racetrack.
You want people on the line, you don't want them doing something weird.
You don't want them doing passing in different places.
Squaring off corners and shit.
I mean, the easiest way to mitigate, because motorsports, whatever level, HPD, race group, it's not safe.
No,
it's not
they're
safe.
inherently not safe.
It's not safe.
Absolutely.
There's nothing we can do about it. We're taking a 2-ton vehicle and throwing 2-ton for some people.
Yeah.
We're taking a vehicle and we're throwing around corners at some ballistic speeds, and we're just we're
if
hoping
you're
that
not
our skill set lines up with where
exactly.
If
you're not on the edge,
yeah,
you're not trying, so to speak. But you know what I mean. You're trying to get people to drive at the edge of their ability and control. The car's ability.
Yes.
And that's it's funny to talk about the DE groups and going to other organizations. That's always the biggest fight when we go to Southern California and stuff. I never know where to place myself in groups because I'll go out and I think I should fit in here pretty well, and either people are absolutely flying in it or are just putting and don't look like they know what they're doing. And it's so hard to figure out, especially when people you never run with before, where you should be.
The consistency of a group really makes it safe. If a group is extremely predictable and consistent in everything they're doing, and making sure everybody's on the same page in terms of passing rules, especially in the intermediate levels where passing is a little more liberal. Especially understanding, the high horsepower versus low horsepower qualms. Miata versus a Mustang. There's ways to have respectful. We got Brian Hasty over here, definitely raising his hand on that one. Low horsepower. 90 horsepower?
Not anymore.
132.
Oh, 132.
Cooking.
I'm talking about my foreign car. Not the new one.
Yeah. So Carter's desire is to move into wheel-to-wheel racing.
Right.
At the end of the year, hopefully.
Yeah, at the end of the year. There's a competition school.
Nice. Yeah, competition is usually held at Arizona Motorsports Park out here. Anybody in DE4 is eligible to sign up for that. It's a really good way because it's not required. Comp school is actually not required, which is hit or miss, a good thing or a bad thing. The comp school though really teaches a lot about the etiquette required for passing, to know who's right and who's wrong before you get to those situations. So when you get into them, it's not such a cluster. The comp school locally, anyways, they do a lot of drills in terms of aggressive starting and reverse grids and having the cars all out of sequence. And I've been in my share, because I did wheel-to-wheel for quite a few years, and I've been in my fair share of incidents where I forgot to put my window net up and I got DQ'd for quality, so I had to start in the back. And when you're starting in the back of a 40-car grid and you're in a 300 horsepower car and there's a 90 horsepower Miata in front of you, things completely change.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Because you're having to figure out how to get through all these guys. So taking the training, going through comp course, which will show you a lot of that, because in the comp schools, you're not usually in race cars. You're actually usually in your street cars or something streetable. A lot of the guys are just DE4 drivers. And no one's graded by lap time. You're just out there and you're learning how to handle people. You're learning how to do race restarts, what to do when the proper flags come out, when the reds, red, yellows, restarts, things like that. It's really a valuable school, and obviously you'll take your exam at the end of it. Hopefully you learn something and you pass.
Yes, hopefully.
But it is definitely a good entry. With NASA Arizona to get a comp license. NASA Arizona definitely has one of the, or NASA in general, I should say, not NASA Arizona specifically. NASA in general has one of the most comprehensive competition programs by pushing you through the DE system. And then usually people do a little bit of time trial and then doing the comp school. Usually by the time you get to comp school, you're ready, you're in good shape, and you basically just have to make sure your car's up to snuff and your personal gear's up to snuff, and then you're off to go.
That's
Very
my
good.
big thing this year is just more seat time.
Seat time is huge. You don't want to. You want to be comfortable when you get in there. That's why a lot of folks do a little bit of TT beforehand, because time trials, obviously, since that is gridded by time, you're chasing someone's faster than you, so you theoretically should never catch them.
Yeah.
Unless you're faster than them.
Unless
A
you
lot of
become
times
faster.
you'll see that faster guy and you'll get pulled along with them, and you'll pick up some extra speed that you didn't think you had, and that when you make that transition to race group, you are up to speed and not dangerous to anybody else.
I've always found, particularly after racing a short period of time, that I was much better at chasing down better drivers than I was at leading out in front.
Yeah, when you're under, the pressure is completely different out front, and a lot of times, a lot of newer drivers will get stuck watching the mirrors if they somehow end up front. Usually, it's not very common, but if you end up out front, and all of a sudden you're watching mirrors all day, you're going to back the whole pack up, and you're going to get somebody antsy behind you causing a situation. You want to be able to just get forward and go. I mean, look at like modern Formula One drivers. I mean, people argue that the machinery is just too advanced, the cars drive themselves, but they don't have ABS. They don't have a lot of the creature comforts that we
really
do.
don't.
I mean, they're really 900 horsepower cars strapped to a 1,200 horsepower chassis or 1,200 pound chassis.
Yeah.
Those drivers, they have to look forward and go and get clear. I mean, turn one is always the riskiest turn, right?
That's
that
one that
first
gets
lap.
my heart thumping.
Yeah, that first lap.
After that,
You can relax.
relax.
Generally, it strings out a little bit.
Yeah.
The incursions are a little bit less, but you need to, as a new driver, you need to be able to focus on it forward and get out of there and focus on what you're doing driving. If you're doing 20% of your focus on everybody else's, that's a lot less focus on the task at hand.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so like all Midnight Oils, we're here to answer your questions. If anybody has questions about competition, they want to start asking, by all means do that. And of course, you can ask other questions as well. So Lydia, if you have any questions coming up and you want to throw those in there, by all means do that.
I have a bunch of questions.
We do,
Mostly
okay.
about swaps. Do you guys want to talk about the car
Swaps. We'll take a few swap questions, and then let's get back to, I actually want to talk about safety equipment a little bit. So, go ahead.
In the car. All right. Go back.
And of course, we are going to talk about this gorgeous NSX behind
Yeah,
us also.
this is Ravi's track car. He runs it in Time Attack and runs it out at all the local NASA events.
Yeah.
It's pretty damn cool. I mean, when you bought it, what was up with it?
So it's been salvaged actually twice.
Salvaged twice.
So it's been in multiple walls. One of them I know was VIR. I don't actually know what the other wall 100% was, but one of it took a right side hit at VIR. It actually drove home that day.
Looks pretty good.
Yeah, it looks all right. Yeah. No, the car, like I said, we towed it home in 2013 on a trailer, just boxes and boxes of parts. It was not assembled. It was
Yard
actually,
sale.
Yeah, it was a bare chassis. The guy that was selling it actually was kind enough to put suspension, and he loosely bolted the engine in there so we could transport the car, but it had no panels on it.
Right.
Nothing. So we drove out there we drove from Phoenix, Arizona to Ohio in 32 hours in a winter storm
Oh, wow.
with an open trailer.
How fun for you.
It was a blast. Luckily I had a friend named Aaron, a friend like Clayton. They volunteered to jump in and go because we all worked. We all have regular jobs, so race car things usually can't interfere with that, unfortunately. But
They do with me.
Yeah, I try not to. Now work is race car, so it helps a lot.
good.
But back then I was just normal 9 to 5er. We jumped in the car on a Friday at like 4 o'clock in this truck that we borrowed from our friend Robert and hooked the trailer up. We left at 4:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. We got to Ohio Saturday at like 3 in the morning. Like it was the most intense straight through drive and just insanity. And then we did the math to get home in time on Monday to go to work. We figured on time that we just need to be home by 4 in the morning. If you're home by 4 in the morning on Monday, that's a 1 hour sleep.
Enough to take a shower.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
So we had
cups of coffee.
6 hours of time in Ohio to get everything to this car together and on the truck and trailer. And the deal was essentially I paid X amount of money, and the owner said, I have all the parts to this car here. I just don't know where any of them are. So be honest and only take one of everything you need. Don't take anything extra, no spares, you know. So we were, but we were having to make sure we got all the critical systems, all the coil packs, and all the little pieces like that, and fuel computers. All this stuff's insanely expensive to buy after the fact. So threw it all in there. We saran wrapped it, then gorilla taped it, and it hadn't even occurred to us that the weather on the way back was going to be one of the worst winter storms ever. It was I think it was -9 in Phoenix, and excuse me, I'm referring to Flagstaff. So
Yeah,
the whole,
sense.
yeah, it was like -9 in Flagstaff. The whole entire trip, it was either snowing, raining, or basically
Sleeting.
a blizzard or sleeting. I mean, the bridges, we were looking at these bridges with our truck and trailer, and they're all iced over. So we're looking, if they have a little curve in them, we just drive down the wrong side of the road, just let off all the controls, and let the truck just slide
Take
over
its
the bridge.
place.
Yeah, just slide
All
over
right.
the bridge.
All right, we got time for a question here?
Yes.
Alright, so we have someone who is doing EK to a GSR swap,
Yep.
and he's wondering what parts he needs to take from his Integra.
Gosh, depends on if you're trying to be carb legal or not, but basically, you said EK, is that what it is?
He's going from EK to a GSR.
Yeah, I mean, the left-hand mount is going to be a little bit different, so you need to.
He already has a B20 in his EK. He's trying to install the GSR.
Oh, okay. Pretty much, it's going to bolt right in. I mean, you're going to need the block bracket off that in order to hook it up to your driver's side engine mount. You can use the transmission you have in there, unless you're using a GSR transmission, you can use that.
ECU wiring harness.
Yeah, ECU wiring harness. You can modify the harness you have. You just add VTEC knock and VTEC oil pressure, or because the GSR harness really isn't compatible with an EK, so you probably just modify the EK harness. You know, you can use the. I don't know if you have a transmission with your GSR. That's a preferable transmission. Otherwise, you can use the one that you have with your V20. That'll work as well. They'll both bolt up. You can use that clutch that came on the V20. Basically, the complete engine, take your harness off what's currently in the car, put it on, add the 3 wires. You're going to need a computer to run that, so you're going to need a 96 to 98 GSR ECU, or if you got a 99-2000, you know, Civic, you're going to need that 99-2000 GSR ECU, or 2001. Might even be 90, might even be 2000, 2001. I'll have to check that.
Quick update on first gen CRX case swap.
Well, we're going to do it. I just haven't had a chance. The last bunch of weekends we've spent racing or on vacation.
It's been enjoyable.
Sounds nice.
2 track weekends in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 track weekends in 2 weeks, and then I went to Mexico the week before that. So, and I've been busy getting out the EFK4 kit, the EK B Series all-wheel drive kit, the GK K Series kit. That should be out in a few days. So I've been a little busy, but that is something that we're going to do. In fact, I'm debating what car to put the K Series in. Carter has a nice wide-body CRX. We were talking to Andy Hope this weekend about building a race car with 245 15 tires on it. And Keith has an old GT light car that I might use that instead. So, huh?
The one out back?
The one out back, yeah, the multicolored one.
Right, yeah, the one sitting on the left
yeah,
usually.
exactly.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So that one, so we're at some point it's going to happen. Right now, ahead of it is finishing up our K-swap and our our K-swap and our Insight. Brian's K-swap. Brian's K-swap and his Fit, or I'm sorry, L15B swap and his Fit. What was the other one? Oh, preparing the Budget EG for some track days. Michael Hinton's L15B7 swap.
We have a lot
and
of
his
cars.
Fit.
A lot of
And
projects.
in fact, I wound up putting my Series E L15B7 swap on the back burner in order to do that. So what?
One more question before we go
Yep.
on to safety. Alright, so
He does hate
any
vacations.
easy options for wiring in a O2 Honda Insight with a K-swap?
The wiring conversion. Well, so we're going to actually do a wiring harness for our particular Insight. We will tell you everything you need to know about doing that swap. That's going to be a video. Lydia, who is asking the questions right now, is going to help me build that harness probably in the next 2 weeks. We've got one car that's got a couple days of work before we start on that Insight. I've actually already plotted out what all needs to be done, so there will be a post on VTECacademy.com as well as a video on how to do that. And is it easy? You tell me after you do it. To me, it's all the same. It's one wire after another till it's done. So, but anyway.
So we go back to safety?
Back to safety. All right. So, so obviously, Carter's going to be doing wheel-to-wheel racing. So,
Hopefully.
you've been doing a lot of time attack stuff.
Right.
So there are several different levels of time attack. There's an enthusiast class, a street class. This is global time attack.
Yeah, we're talking about global time attack. They have it classed in a manner that allows different levels of car preparedness to participate.
Right.
Obviously, there's different groups that have different rules and all that. But global time attack is one of the larger organizations out there that's pretty much kind of the standard at this time. And so enthusiasts is for folks who just have a street car essentially, and we define street car as registered, not big aftermarket turbo stuff like that. Usually 200, I think they're 220 treadwear tires is the stickiest tire they can run, something like that. Then you go to street class where the rules change just a little bit, usually more tire, more grip, a little bit more suspensions allowed. Their aero is still restricted, they can't add a lot of aero to that dynamic devices. And then like we run limited, which is the next class up, which we're allowed to run quite a bit more aerodynamics. The power there is no power restriction in time attack, so that's the one big difference between wheel to wheel and
I would
time
say
attack.
the limited class is there's not a huge unlimited amount of aero you can do, but basically it can be a race car.
It can be a race car.
Yeah.
Like our
So
car
it'd be
did
fully
wheel to wheel
caged,
first.
stripped interior.
In fact, the
more or
GTA
less.
you're actually required to have at least that 4-point, half back cage, and then they recommend obviously a full 6-point because once you're adding the R compounds and the aero, the speed differentials on these cars are much different. Like our car at Atlanta, has capacity of run 135, 136 at Atlanta without much done to it now. I've ran a 137, and if I took a stock NSX and went to Atlanta, probably like a 144. It'd be 10 seconds or higher.
Slower
delta.
than, right.
So the speeds are getting pretty intense once you equip them to that level. So the safety gear does ramp up. Their safety requirements ramp up. Like for instance, the full unlimited, they're required to wear Hans. They're required. It's required as opposed to limited and down. It's all optional.
Right.
So it does ramp up as you go. I mean, time attack is not wheel-to-wheel racing.
Right.
I call them quality laps. You're doing quality laps.
Right, and I'll tell you, for me, wheel-to-wheel racing, the thing you want to be careful of is you want to be careful of side impacts.
Right.
You want to be careful of just basically tangling with people in the corner.
Sure.
Okay.
You're much more open to the side-by-side action because obviously in a properly organized time attack group, you won't actually really encounter the cars in front of you.
There
till
should be
several
spacing.
laps. Could be 5 to 8 seconds of really good track time between you, or track space between the cars as it released. Sure, after 4 or 5 laps, you're going to catch some cars on cooldowns, and maybe you warm up late, so you'll catch them on there. But if again the driver caliber that are global time attack, they know where they see them coming, they let them by.
They know how to get out of the
way.
way.
They know what a fast lap is, and it's very different than HPD. Where in HPD you always stay online and let the other guy pass around you. In time attack, usually you get offline, let the guy who's on the hot lap continue online.
Yeah, you don't want to screw him up.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's definitely different. It takes a higher skill level. Global time attack requires at least a DE3 level or higher type equivalent driver.
Yeah.
So it definitely changes it up. It's competition. It's not DE anymore. So it's much. I mean, there are prizes up for grabs. But that being said, the cars are prepared at a much more serious level.
Sure.
I mean, you look at like James Houghton's car, his Integra. For
Crazy
instance.
downforce.
It's an Integra.
It was an Integra.
Or even like Chris Boersma or Will All Young. All these cars.
Yeah.
These all started off as just Hondas. I mean, if you look like 6 years back at James Houghton's car, it looked like any other Integra that goes to a track day.
Right.
And now it's absolutely.
The splitter was that much wider on the sides. Other than that, it looked like a frickin' anybody's track day Integra.
Right.
I have a question about when should people start considering getting the Hans device?
Right. This is a really easy but also hard to digest question for a lot of folks. So the reality of the matter is whether you're in a DE1 or the fastest car at Global Time Attack, that wall doesn't care. It really doesn't care.
If you got a helmet on, you should have a Hans device.
You really should. A lot of people don't like. A lot of people will put the fixed bucket seats in, put the 5-point harnesses on, and think that's all great and dandy. But the reality of the matter is, you've completely secured your entire body except your head. And then you just added 3.5 to 4 pounds of weight to it. When you decelerate your head, all that energy gets put through your neck. And I guarantee you, if you get in any kind of accident higher than 25 miles an hour with a fully harnessed in, you're going to feel it the next day and possibly cause irreparable damage.
Yeah, and I specifically have irreparable. Anyway,
He's broken.
See, I can't talk. I'm broken totally.
You know, that's funny because or not funny, it's not funny.
It's not funny.
But
It's funny.
when I first started driving at 16 or 17 for my first track day that wasn't an autocross, even DE1, I put a Hans device on with my helmet.
That was extremely intelligent, and obviously you had a good background.
Yeah,
and
that was
I'll be
him.
honest, I wasn't in that category. I had
Yeah.
when I got into motorsports, I didn't really have anyone to show me the way or guide me, and honestly, safety's talked about so infrequently, just because we don't want to talk about it. It's not a super, it's not super entertaining topic. A lot of us want to take the hey, it's my body, I do what I want, and crash if I want to hurt yourself. That doesn't work for your family. That doesn't work for the track organizers. It doesn't work for everyone else who's involved. So safety is a community thing that we all have to embrace and understand. And you can scale it up. Like, I don't expect anyone to show up to DE1 in a full fire suit, full fire gear, with a Hans device on and ready to go. I just don't expect
Roll
it.
bar, 6-point harness.
Because remember, you can't use a Hans device unless you have a hybrid S, which is, again, it's $1,100 out the door. No, I don't expect anybody to show up with that. But I expect that, as people do their HPD1 and they start doing 2 and 3, they should understand that they need to understand the consequences of not gearing up, at a reasonable rate. I always tell folks, when people ask me this, because this question comes up all the time, what's the minimum I should have? I'm saying the minimum is whatever you can afford. That's the reality, is that what you can afford is the minimum. Now, the question to ask yourself is, can you afford the $5,000 hospital ride because you didn't wear a Hans?
Right, that's the question.
I can't. I go straight up, I can't afford it.
You can't afford it.
Yeah, no.
If you can, that's exactly right.
That's going against my credit score.
That's the big thing, is what's the price of getting hurt?
Right, the price of getting hurt is significant.
But let's talk about human behavior. The price of getting hurt is something that's off in the distance.
It's in the distance, and
It's
it's not here.
It's just not something that a young person thinks about. So the reality of life is, if your eventual goal is wheel-to-wheel racing, get that as soon as possible.
As soon as possible, and even if your goal is not wheel-to-wheel, if you just like the hobby so much that you're going to do it 5 times a year,
Yeah.
every time
True.
you're going
Yeah,
out,
true.
you're
Good point.
at a risk.
Yeah.
And like I do it all the time. The NASA Arizona guys have been awesome. They all come and ask questions. I always encourage people to call us, ask questions. If you're not sure, I'll give you the most honest answer I possibly can. You can be equipped head to toe with rated high quality product for like $1,500. It's not as expensive as people think it is. They're under the impression that it has to be expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive.
It's funny too, because you look at the cost of a set of coilovers and stuff like
Right.
that, and
What's a set of 2-ways cost these days?
yeah, well,
Too much.
yeah, it can be a lot. So, but my point is that it should be fairly high on your list of some of the things you want to purchase. I mean, it shouldn't be something that's, oh, I've got everything else, I need to do that. Because people will put a frickin' $4,000 turbo kit on the car, and they will make that thing a deadly missile before they ever think about their own safety.
Right, yeah.
You
It's really tough to have. In my line of work, like I said, we're not trying to get people to spend a bunch of money on stuff they don't need. We're trying to help them understand that they do need this stuff at varying levels of severity as they go along. Yeah, Brian?
Wouldn't it be a fair assessment to say that once you're ready to go into DE3,
Yes.
that you should
Right.
have a Hans device?
Right.
I mean,
Now, but let's understand, a Hans device just isn't a Hans device.
Yeah,
A Hans
harness,
device
seat.
requires harnesses, requires seat, requires a roll bar
Or the
legitimately.
hybrid S, or like I said, a lot
Right,
of
or hybrid S
I
would be
talk
fine.
I talk
Right,
with a
good
ton.
point.
I talk with a ton of users who like, I don't want to go all through all that seating stuff. And, we talk about the hybrid S all the time. Like, the hybrid S is the solution for those folks. It exists. There are solutions for, yes, it's expensive, but it's still $1,200 versus the $5,000 for the hospital ride, plus whatever the heck you incur while you're there.
But let me be realistic for a second here. If I've got a hybrid S, $1,200,
About $1,150
$1,100
or so, yeah.
and I've got a Hans device, a set of seat belts, and a roll bar, that's what I'm choosing.
You see me, my car's always set up with that, 'cause I want the advantages
Yeah.
of the seat, I want the advantages of the harness, I want the advantages of
Yeah.
everything. But for the
If-
folks that don't want to
If
go that far,
if I've got a brand new NSX hybrid S,
Right.
if I've got an Aventador hybrid S,
Right.
you understand
yeah, I
what
see
I'm
what you're saying.
saying?
If you have a 1992 Civic that you can throw a bucket seats, a 4-point cage, and some harnesses in it for like $1,500, you get a
That's what I'm
regular
doing.
Hans.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, 100%
I'm
of the time.
not going to do that.
If you have a dedicated track car,
Yeah.
you should have a regular
Yeah.
style Hans device or next gen or whatever version of the head and neck system you prefer. as long as it's a properly designed
Right.
one. Yeah, there's not a lot of reason not to go that route, unless you literally are just don't care. But the problem about like we talked about not caring is it can have a lot of consequences for people around you.
Absolutely.
Insurance-wise, organizationally-wise, your family.
Your family, and think about your family, really.
Yeah. I
Because most people are too selfish to think about what the track owner or the event owner is paying for insurance. You don't understand, most people
yeah.
do.
Oh, yeah.
But think about your freaking wife
When did you roll over?
mom.
What year was your rollover?
When did I roll? 5 years ago.
2013.
It's 2013?
Yeah,
So
5 years ago.
2013 was actually when I started doing wheel-to-wheel, and I remember that incident because Katura actually showed me,
Everybody did.
Oh my God, everybody knew about that
Yeah.
incident. But I can't get in my car without feeling guilty without a Hans on. I feel so
Isn't that funny?
incredibly guilty because I'm doing a disservice to everyone around me. Think about it this way. What if you and I are racing on the track, and you accidentally tap me and I hit a wall, and I die? Because my neck snapped. Because I wasn't wearing a Hans.
Oh, yeah.
The effect on you for
So,
years.
let me explain something. When we did the Pinks episode, I don't know if you remember, we did
Yes.
a Pinks episode where we had the guy in the Volkswagen,
Yep.
and I negotiated his wheelie bar off his Volkswagen.
Right.
And then when he frickin' did a wheelie, damaged a frickin' wheel bearing, and that turned him into the wall, I felt so bad for years.
Right, the guilt
Because,
on you.
because it was
inadvertently caused
me.
that.
I'm thinking, ooh, I'm gonna get the
unintentionally.
advantage, and
You
I
sure
frickin'
did.
almost killed him.
Yeah.
So-
It's so like the Hans thing, like I've been in a car fire, right? One car fire.
Yeah, oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know the white car?
Wow.
The white NSX was on fire in 2012.
Oh, I do remember this.
Or so.
Yes.
And I want to bring one, and then again, I don't have a race car, I don't need all this stuff. My white NSX, for people who don't know me, is a completely stock NSX. It has wheels and tires and brake pads on. I mean, it's a stock NSX. And at like 80 miles an hour down Wild Horse East, it got a little tiny pinhole in a hydraulic line, and it sprayed a mist of that hydraulic fluid onto the hot right rear rotor and engulfed the car in a flame that was visible from the freeway. We're talking about a 15-foot tall flame that went about 25 to 30 feet back. This is my street car. This is the car you never expect it to happen. In fact, I always remind people, street cars, especially older, are the most susceptible ones. They have old brake lines, they have old fluid lines, they have old seals, they have old brake dust seals, and it's going to happen. It happened in my street car. Now,
I've seen so many fuel fires on older cars.
and I was fortunate that I'd actually already started doing wheel-to-wheel that time. I had my Integra, I was doing the wheel-to-wheel Honda Challenge already, so I had worn my fire suit that day, and my gloves, and I had my extinguisher on me. These are not, at this time in my life, back then, that wasn't 100% normal for me yet. Like, I hadn't been scared into it, and I don't mean scared in a mean way. I mean, I hadn't really tasted the repercussions of being not prepared. So, two awesome things happened. A, I didn't die, because I, again, was wearing all my gear and I was prepared. I was able to stop the car. I was able to put the fire out with the assistance of the fire truck, because I also knew where the corner workers were, and I pulled it over right by the fire truck was.
I think I remember this now.
So
yeah.
I got out of my car, realized, hey, I'm in a fire suit. This is a good scenario. Got my fire extinguisher. Me and the fire guy just blasted each other in the face, and it ended up costing me like $500
Nice.
to fix the car. It was running the next day.
Nice.
But had I not had my fire gear on, had I not had my extinguisher on, that car would have been totaled, dude. It would have burned to the
It
ground.
would have burned to the ground.
Because I was able to get the fire down
Yeah,
a little bit enough for the
let's be
fire to
realistic.
get to me.
No fire suit. You probably would have bailed out of the car while it was still moving.
Oh, I would have gone and just ran the other way.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
as soon as I was bailing out, I realized that, hey, I'm actually in a pretty good shape to at least see what's going on before I just walk away from this thing.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
encouraging anybody to be their own firefighter. I'm
Well,
just
it's funny
saying
because
the
I've seen-
mentality totally changed though being prepared.
I've seen people not in their fire suits come back to their cars and get burned.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
I actually, the
yeah.
only thing I had two things happen to me after that incident, both which, again, were not really preventable in this particular scenario. I had a little burn on my right hand because my right hand had got up under the bumper where I was trying to hit the extinguisher under there where the brake was, and then I inhaled a bunch of the potassium K. Yeah, that burned for a long time.
Yeah,
that was my
that
birthday, by
sucks.
the way.
Happy birthday.
That was my birthday. That was a great birthday.
Oh,
Just
man.
going to the hospital and all that
I'll tell you
fun
about my
stuff.
car fire sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess at the end of the day, though, and that's another thing, is like use the right fire extinguisher, not the
Oh yeah, correct one for the type of fire.
Halitron, not potassium K household ones. That was a mistake, but it still worked. But I got lucky, to be real honest with
Yeah.
everyone. I got really lucky that whole day. Yeah.
So we were at the track this weekend with Andy Hope, and he was running the time attack prelude, and I was running just a intermediate low, just because I was on street tires and I just wanted to go out and have fun. And I'm sitting there before we got on track. I'm like, should I put on my race suit? Is it really worth it? And Andy looks at me and goes, you have
Every
one?
worth it.
I said, yeah. He goes, why wouldn't you then?
Why wouldn't you be
Exactly.
Why
prepared?
don't you want that? I'm like, and like in my head, first I'm like, well, you know, it's a K-swapped EG. It's all stock. I don't have anything running through it. But it's just like, why not? I'm like, that absolutely makes sense. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, exactly.
Why not? You have it.
It's
do it.
sitting
Have
right
it,
there.
use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Sitting right there.
Yeah.
What's the point of
Yeah.
being in a ball of
What-
flames and having your suit back in the
Yeah,
trailer?
exactly.
No, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
Which
to
is
this,
that?
to this day, like even if my grid is going up to grid, because in time attack, I'm not required to wear any safety gear other than my helmet. That's all that's required at my particular level. But if they're rolling up to grid and I'm sitting there unprepared, because that happens a lot because I'm lazy, and I'm unaware of what's happening because I'm not good with schedules. I'm not good with schedules. So I will scramble and get all of it on every time, and I will wait the extra lap while they get their flyer done before I can go out because it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it. I can't handle it. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, a few more questions.
Yeah.
Before we go back to the topic. What's a good header for a D16 Z6 CRX?
For D16 CRX?
Yes.
D16, if it doesn't have a lot of modifications, the DC Sports ones are absolutely fine. They're budgety and they're absolutely will give you pretty much as much horsepower as you're going to get on something like that. You have to have a lot of modifications on those things before you have to do any 4-into-1 header or something like that. The Tri-Y headers are absolutely the best for a normal D16 engine, so I wouldn't do anything but that. You're actually going to wind up with a header and exhaust. The next best thing to do is have a proper intake air tube that's got enough length on it and can get some cold air going into the engine. But you know, having anything greater than a Tri-Y header is not really necessary on a D16. If you're starting to do high compression, starting to rev a lot higher, then maybe you might want to look into 4-into-1, but you're going to need to be revving that engine up above 9,000 RPM to even bother with a 4-into-1 header on those things. So yeah.
All right, Marvin is asking, does he need a non-servo steering for a K20 swap on his EG hatch?
A non-what?
Does he need non-servo steering?
Non-power.
Oh, non-power steering?
Yeah.
Manual rack.
SRVO, I think is what's. I'll try to find it now.
So, what's the car again?
EG hatch.
EG hatch. EG hatches and power steering. Oh, you need a non-power steering rack for that, or you need a GSR rack.
Oh, yeah.
The GSR rack and the
Non-servo.
manual racks allow you clearance to the differential on
She
the
does.
EG.
She gets scared.
If you run the Civic style power steering rack, that rack has a long nose on it, and that will quite often interfere with the differential. You had that on your original EG, although we just put a stiff rear mount in it to prevent it from hitting. Because what happens is the engine under downshifting actually rocks backwards, and the diff will hit the the nose of the power steering rack. If you have a Civic style one, if you have an Integra style one, or like a Del Sol VTEC style one, or a manual one, then you're going to have plenty of clearance, and it's not necessary.
All right.
Somebody's talking shit. Yeah. Somebody doesn't like Ravi on the live stream.
I'm not liked by a lot of people, so.
Everybody's got haters. I got
Everybody's
haters.
got haters.
I have two.
Haters are my biggest fans.
We can call him out.
Yeah, who is it? Neutron Performance, although he does like my shoes.
That's not. You do have. Nice
That's
shoes
because you
on.
got new shoes on.
They are.
These
They were new.
These
They
are
were
like
new last week.
these are like 4 days of work. That's all.
I
And
know.
they
They'll
are-
get black in another week.
Yeah.
So somebody complained a few weeks ago about you needing new shoes, and Carter buys them all the time, but they just immediately get
Apparently, people's
wasted.
opinion is I'm not talking enough tonight. I didn't know people actually like to hear me talk.
You have a
Well,
nice
you
soothing voice.
need to talk more.
Soothing
You have a
voice.
soothing voice.
You need to actually be rapping.
I need to be rapping.
Yeah.
Oh, because everybody thinks I look like Post Malone.
That's right.
Or Toast Malone.
That's it,
Toast-
Post Malone.
Toast Malone. There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, it's
So I'm sorry, I just got another question.
Oh,
Quiet.
no one cares
You're
about
talking
their
too
SWAT
much.
questions.
You're talking too much. All right.
Simmer
let's-
down.
All right. Which camshaft from F-Series is best for turbo on F-Series engine?
F-Series questions. Let me explain something about F-Series questions.
came up last
We've
week.
got a lot of F-Series questions. I swear to God, I will take a drive out and sit down with BC Ezerioha, because I know a lot of people have a problem with him, but the guy is unbelievably knowledgeable. So I will sit down with BC and we will talk F-Series and talk about the cams, talk about compression ratios with turbos. We'll talk about all that stuff. I will get that done. I'm not an F-Series expert. I've built a few H-Series motors, but they've always been pretty minor builds, just basically cams, valve springs, things like that, intake, intake and header. We have built one high-performance H23, which was high compression with a high-tech header. That thing makes, but even then, it only makes 200 and...
Well, it is built to be production, rules.
E-production rules. But it's even not built to the extent of that.
Yes.
It's just a mild build.
It is.
So it's got a little bit more, it's probably a little over 200 horsepower. So, so I'm not your F-Series expert, but I know an F-Series expert. So I will make a trip out there and talk to BC about it. In fact, we were talking about me taking a tour through California and just doing...
I'm ready for a week of Cali.
And just doing...
You ready for vacation again?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just...
Car people.
And just doing a bunch of midnight oils.
Can we
out there in
culminate in
California.
a track weekend
So,
again?
Chuck Waller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chuck Waller.
but...
Big Willow. We were talking about doing Big Willow in July.
When we do Big Willow in...
I'm not doing Big Willow
It's not July,
without
it's
a
June,
caged
isn't it?
car.
Right.
No.
Red Line Time Attack, isn't it June?
They still do.
I thought it was July. Do they do?
I'll check.
The same guy who does,
I
VTEC
messaged
Club
their
and-
Facebook page, which has nothing in the
yeah,
events
he owns
section
a
about
couple
that. So when we know that when the Red Line Time Attack is, that's the weekend I'll go talk to BC.
Yes.
So we will do it. I will get it done. All right, more questions?
One more question before we talk about the car.
Yeah.
Where did it go? So, K-Series Accord swap and an EG, if he uses the element harness, will he have to do any mods to the harness?
Typically, the element harness, when you use the adapter harness with that, what winds up happening is the C101 plug, which is a large gray plug, is exactly mirror imaged of the one that comes in the RSX. So you wind up having to swap all the pins for that. If they need to know what that information is, they can email me. I'll be happy to send them a wiring diagram for that particular plug so that they can get that done. But yeah, if you use an element harness, the C101 plug, which is the large gray plug that interfaces between the car and the engine harness, or actually, I'm sorry, between the adapter harness and the engine harness, that actually is a mirror image of what the RSX. So I'll be happy to send you that information. And I will actually post that up at some point when I do my. I'm going to do like some wiring, articles on how to convert Accord harnesses to use RSXs and element harnesses and all that sorts of stuff.
Here's a good one that has to do with road racing real quick.
Cool.
Which is a better choice motor for road racing internally stock, in your opinion? K24AT, A2 or K20A, and why?
So here's the deal.
Depends on your class too, obviously, but
Well,
Talking like no oil pump mods or what?
Well, here's my take on that, just so you understand. The thing about the K20A2 is if you misshift it, turn the motor off. Because you're going to stretch a rod bolt, and if you don't turn it off, you're going to throw a rod, or at least get a rod nut. If you have a K24, you can misshift those things multiple times as long as you have like a normal red line with no damage whatsoever. So what winds up happening is the K24A2 winds up being a better choice for the fact that you got a 6-speed transmission, you're going to frickin' misshift. I guarantee you, unless you're me, you're going to misshift the engine at some point. So that's just the way it is. I don't misshift. I don't know what the hell.
You're gonna misshift now.
yeah, I probably
I
missed one
well,
shift
you have
in my
5
life.
gears. You have 5 speeds in your car.
That's because he misshift.
Oh no, you have a
Yeah,
6-speed in
started.
In what car?
most of the cars you race.
No, they've all been 5 speeds.
That's what I'm saying. You don't have 6-speed. The 6-speeds are the
What
ones
do
you
you need 6
misshift.
speed for?
People misshift that shit all
So
the
you can
time.
misshift and have 5 speeds.
Yeah.
The gates are fairly narrow, and people all the time will do like
Not on the TSX trainers.
they'll be coming from like a 5 and hit 6 or hit
Yes.
second and accidentally instead of fourth, and 9,300 RPM later they've got a stretch rod bolt. So for that reason, what's up?
Broke the shifter in Atlanta when I went to go from into 5th gear. It actually went back into 3rd because I actually hadn't realized that the whole shifter had come off the floor, like the whole assembly with cables and everything. It's
So it leaned rather than you.
yeah.
Oh.
So I just went back 3rd, and as soon as I was letting the clutch out, I was like, oh nope, back in, and I tried it one more time, like, oh nope, back in, and then I looked down, and I was holding the whole thing, like, oh that's
So
probably
what
that
you're
would be
saying
rough.
is that your race prep was insufficient.
Apparently, I need to use not OEM bolts and washers on the whole frame there that had to replace.
Well, the problem is
all
those things are,
Or Loctite.
yeah,
Or
Loctite, proper
that.
torque.
I must say though, in the 8 or 9 years of
aluminum
dealing with
bushings.
NSXs, I've never had a shifter come off.
Well,
the
you know,
floor
that
before.
just happens occasionally, but
Now it's on the list.
Yeah.
And now there's spare bolts in there with washers
I remember
too.
we forgot to put washers on my B16 shift linkage in my CRX, and I was going around the track and it just dropped out the bottom.
Yeah, because there's like little sleeves with rubber bushings.
Right.
And we didn't have big washers to capture
So
the
it's-
rubber
yeah,
bushing. So he's like, "Wah!"
So the sleeve is
And
still
it
in
just-
with the rubber
yeah,
bushing
exactly.
dropped down with it.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole shifter drops down.
Oh.
He comes
So I
out.
like got out track in third gear. Like
Yeah.
I had to leave track in 5th gear, going up
nice.
the hill at Atlanta, up turn 12, and then
Were you
back
slipping
down.
the clutch, or
I
were
was
you
revving
just lugging
it to 7 grand, then dumping the clutch for about half a second, and doing it over and over again because I couldn't get up the hill.
Nice.
If you watch the live stream, you can hear it.
Let's talk about the car.
Yeah, let's get
Yes,
to the
let's take a
Should we go to
brief
mobile?
pause for a
Talk
second
about the car.
so we can get the
The
camera
drive
off the
car.
stand.
Alright, we're going to mobile.
We're gonna go mobile and talk about the NSX.
Rolling tires.
Hey, the mic's not in all the way.
Go do your calculus. Hopefully we have audio. Do we have anybody that can? Whoa.
It's on such a long delay, no one will know.
No one will know.
Yeah, pop that. Yeah, pop the hood in. There you go.
Pop the hood.
Pop the hood, bro.
Pop the boot.
Well, we're gonna look at where the air is directed.
Do we have audio?
We have audio.
We have audio.
All right. Where are we starting?
So what year NSX is this?
It's a 1991.
91. So it's drive-by throttle cable.
Still throttle cable. For anybody who's an NSX, a person who really sticks with them and knows a lot about them, it's one of the 6 manual and tan interior ones. They only
Not
made
very tan anymore.
It's not very tan anymore, but they came that way. They did not make very many of them in manual in 1991.
Very good.
Yeah.
And what color was the original color?
It was a Sebring silver.
So then it got cool pink.
It got cool pink, yes, mainly because the paint was wearing out badly, and then we obviously partnered up with some organizations here to do some support charity-wise.
Nice.
So we jumped up with the F Cancer group, and have been working with them for about 6 months or so, and done a lot of good work with them. So we're happy with it.
Very cool. Very cool.
They
Why
want
don't
you
you
to pop the hood.
That hood or that hood? The frunk?
I don't think the front matters. I think they
Yeah,
just
boot
want
back,
to
the
see
hood.
the
The hood's open.
Come on back.
Somebody stole the engine.
Yeah.
It's gone.
We've got the rear hatch pop. Ooh, SUVs. Come this way.
I'm coming.
So it is. It's still naturally aspirated. It's 12.5 to 1, and it still runs pump gas. Actually, tuned by Tony.
A UMS.
Yeah, Tony at UMS Tuning actually tuned this thing, and with the ITBs and 12.5 to 1, it did just over 320 on pump, which is about 100 horsepower at the wheel over its stock dyno.
Wow.
So
that's pretty impressive.
Not too bad.
So Tony, so what ECU is in it?
It's a Series 2 AEM.
Series 2 AEM.
Yep. Series 2 AEM was the easiest solution at the time. Now, and that was long before Infinities were quite ready to be released. Actually, it was released like within a year after I bought the Series 2.
I like the Series 2. I use that to run my V6 drag car.
You know, I really enjoy it. It's very user-friendly. I could jump in there with AEM Tuner and see what's going on real quick and easy. Science of Speed did the ITB kit, and they did the jumper harness as well, so it's been flawless. We've been running this car since end of 2013, beginning of 2014, and it's really never hiccuped. The only thing, it's got one weird characteristic. If it rains out, even if the car doesn't get wet, it has all sorts of gremlins. We don't know why.
Interesting.
If it doesn't get wet, just the humidity throws some connector off someplace. So we need to. That's the next big thing is we want to go through the engine harness and redo it with probably a mil spec type harness and something we have a little more control over.
Interesting. Interesting. So who did the roll cage in this?
The roll cage was done out over in Phoenix by Kelly Wolf at Insane Innovations, and it took quite an effort to find someone who would touch the car in general. Most people just didn't want to deal with the tight spaces. I got some crazy quotes, and I'm like, it's still just a car. It's just another
We're
long-range
not
chassis
building.
car.
I'm not asking you to build me a
tubes
tube chassis.
Yeah.
It's bent tubes and a car.
Yeah,
Come
so
on,
I mean-
dudes, do me a favor.
So I mean, Kelly was really helpful, and he actually was able to deliver the cage on time, as designed. It's very helpful for him. We got that rolling in the mid of 2014. I think it was ready to go for wheel-to-wheel racing with NASA. It runs the Super Touring class with NASA. We haven't done that in a couple of years, but it did quite well. The 2015 season, it actually regionally was first place, and I think over nationwide it ended up being like 8th. I think is how we ended up at nationals at Laguna Seca, which that was a fun time too.
Very cool. So talk a little bit about what type of things have you done to the interior to kind of personalize it?
Oh man, well, it's got a lot of signatures all over it, as you might notice, and that was because the car, as we started, like we talked about earlier, was a salvage car, and it took a lot of people to donate parts and donate time. The original paint job was donated. A lot of the safety gear was donated from my sponsor at the time. I was going through some health problems. So there's a lot of signatures all over the dash for people who actually helped out and made us make sure we had a really sweet car at the end of the day. There's also little reminders like on my gauge cluster there of when you're driving, what you should probably focus on, which is going fast and please don't suck. It happens a lot. It's a very good constant reminder. Actually, there's a couple things written on the roof too. It's underneath there. Just little things that keep my head where it needs to be.
I don't think I'm getting that shot.
No, you're probably not going to get that one. It's way up on the top front by the bar. You probably can't see it.
not gonna see that.
But a lot of them actually are coming from the safety stuff. I have, a lot of my friends that are really close to me have written on the car. So when I jump in the car, I immediately am reminded of these folks, and I remember, hey, be safe. Don't take it over the limit. Keep it right at the limit. Don't go past. Don't take any risks that are unnecessary. Because, man, when I was 19, I would do all sorts of crazy crap. But now in my mid 30s, I'm not really ready to go yet. So. Bro Photo Forever. A lot of guys who are into time attack will recognize him. That is Kyle Lewis. He was a figure and a staple at the Global Time Attack. He was one of those guys that would just come up to you out of nowhere, say hi to you, shake your hand, didn't care who you were. He would make your day instantly better. He did photography for the Global Time Attack group for many years, and he's missed by many. I unfortunately didn't get to know him too well. I only met him a few times, but in the few minor instances I talked to him, you just realized he was a really good. Yeah, he passed. Passed a couple years ago. You didn't know that.
I met him once, but I didn't know that.
Out of nowhere, the poor guy, he just went in the hospital one night. He told everybody he was going to the hospital, had a problem, and they set up a GoFundMe for his hospital bills, and the next day he was gone. It had an instantaneous tumor in his head that just, it was really unfortunate. It really hurt the community real bad, obviously. So you'll see, if you go to Global Time Attack, you'll see that sticker or other equivalents of it.
I have seen it around.
Yeah.
That's why I pointed it out.
Yeah,
I've seen
we all
it on a
miss
few
Kyle
cars.
quite a bit. Yeah,
Wow.
he was one of the original bros, so.
Sorry to hear that.
I don't know.
So what kind of
light on the wheel side?
So what kind of future modifications are you thinking about doing with this car?
Just switched to our current
Ooh,
brake setup,
Advent.
which we haven't really quite tested yet, but we're looking forward to it, which our Stop Tech was gracious enough to basically donate these brakes to us, essentially. The major modifications for the car are actually mostly in the driver, though. The driver needs to get better, so I'm spending a lot of time with that, but we are changing some aerodynamic components on the front, mainly the splitters, changing materials. Has to be rebuilt because it's had a really hard 4 years of life. We can't believe it's made it through 4 years of abuse and has not utterly failed.
That's not bad for a Luminolight.
No, the Luminolight had survived, but like the underneath there, you can probably tell right here, it's actually thinner right here than it is the rest of the entire splitter, and underneath the entire sheet of Luminlight's missing. It's just corrugated plastic hanging out.
My Tigris front splitter fell at the track one day. I did a full lap, and it's sharp as a knife on the front of mine.
Oh yeah, like it's razor underneath there. So we re-engineered the mounting system last year with a local guy named Nick Rose from Wild Child Innovations. So now we're going to go to the next step, which is we're going to go to a CRF, a composite material splitter. It's going to extend a little further out. We're going to be able to build our aero package on top of it because it's a much stronger material versus a Luminolight. Luminlight's great because it's cheap, it's durable, it's easy to replace, but it's really not that structurally stable.
Yeah, if you only have an inch or so sticking out past thing, it's absolutely fine. The problem is, as it gets bigger and bigger, more and more pressure is being put on it.
And as we've advanced our program, the front aero has been a challenge for us, getting enough front downforce on a car that has almost no weight in the front. And it has very little aero downforce in the front. So we're working on that. We're working on increasing the high pressure in the front to help the front end stick a bit.
I'll tell you what's funny is I go see him every year.
Yeah.
And one of the things that bothers me more than anything is to see some crazy, cool looking NSX and there's no frickin' ducting to the radiator.
Right.
And I just am like going, why do you even bother?
Yeah.
You know?
Ducting, we switched again. You'll notice that the lower garnishes are not a factor anymore. We switched those last year, mainly due to aerodynamic inefficiencies with the factory one, in the sense it had a lot of holes in it for all the factory components.
Right.
And we don't have those anymore, so we wanted them gone. So we took a note out of the Super Miata book, and we're like, HDPE, let's do it. So we grabbed some HDPE plastic, and we made walls, and there's a metal reinforcements behind that hold it all up. We're gonna again revise that a bit more as we go, but eventually we want to take the radiator and actually flatten it out, put it up out of harm's way a little further.
Sure.
Duct out a little bit better, duct the hood a little better. So we have noticed there's some aerodynamic inefficiencies that we can correct with some pretty small stuff.
I'll tell you what's interesting also is, in all honesty, the opening could actually, unless you're turbocharging it, the opening could actually be quite a bit smaller.
Yeah, it can be quite a bit smaller. Our thought process with the large opening was actually to increase the surface area of the splitter.
Sure.
That was, as you notice, this is actually almost level with the splitter, because initially we were having massive oversteer problems. And we ended up going through the whole suspension, and it went backwards the other way, so then we ended up doing the larger opening of the mouth, and that corrected the understeer. About 90% of it. We're still not quite there, but we're pretty close.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the car is really, really nicely done. It looks fantastic.
It's a track rally. It's definitely not a show quality level build, but it's extremely built with intent and purpose, and we don't really, there's nothing extra on here. I mean, to the level, like even the dashboard, we took it off and we shaved all the extra plastic off the back.
Right.
We took 3.5 pounds of dead plastic off the back of an already dead dash.
Yeah.
So it was done in that manner.
Now the wing's up a little bit higher than I've seen a lot of NSXs. Why don't you tell me about that?
So the wing is definitely mounted higher than you'll see on most NSXs for one main reason. I'm just going to close this hatch here so you can see. So if you notice here on the back of the scoop here, we have our air inlet for the ITBs, which we added many years ago, and we used to have a much lower mounted, much more popular Tytec wing on the car, but we always could never figure out why the car, even with such a large aerodynamic component, was always oversteering, even with soft springs in the back, a lot of toe in the back, and after doing a little playing with CFD, we realized that little air scoop on the top of the duct there was causing turbulence down the center of the back of the car, so the center section of the wing was actually probably not that effective. So that being said, we moved the wing up about 10 inches, and actually were able to reduce angle of attack on it. We were actually reduced chord size, and which overall it's a much smaller wing than we used to have on the car. And it ended up being a net gain of about 4 miles an hour at Atlanta, and the car actually is downforce capacity. We actually had to bump the springs up 4K in the rear.
Wow.
So it's working now.
Significantly
So that's
different.
it's hard to scientifically test this stuff without a wind tunnel, but the it works factor was awesome. Our first test of it was actually at Coda, and the car understeered so bad with the original springs that we had to bump that 4K up to get it to become more neutral again.
Right.
So it's been a year of setup mainly.
So as you increase the downforce on the front end, do you anticipate having to put a little more?
We do.
angle on that?
So we luckily the whole car has been set up with the wing at fairly the lowest angle attack that's available on the adjustment. So as we increase the front wing, we're thinking we're going to be tailoring a little bit of downforce back into the rear. But we'll be able to play with it. The springs are good. The car's not dragging on the ground anymore because when we first did the splitter in the wing, the 10, 12K springs were so soft that it literally would drag the car along the ground at 150 plus miles an hour.
Wow. Very cool. Hey guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up this evening. Ravi, thank you very much for coming out.
Ryan, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. By the way, guys, if you're interested in, you have some questions you want to ask, go ahead and I'm going to turn on the comments for this particular video. You can ask your questions there. We'll do our best to answer them at the next one of these live broadcasts. By the way, next week we'll be going to visit Tage.
Ah, excellent.
We're going to go visit Tage at his house. He's got a Time Attack Civic, which loves to beat up on GTRs. Very, very fast car.
It's an amazing machine.
Amazing machine. So please join us next week at please join us next week at the VTEC Academy Midnight Oil. And again, put your questions in there, particularly if you have any questions for Tage and his Time Attack Civic. And thank you guys very much for joining us. Yes,
Where can we find Ravi and get more information
Ravi.
about him and his company?
So, Ravi's company is WeDon'tLift.com.
Yes, WeDon'tLift.com, and I'll be watching this live stream, the comments live stream. If you guys have any safety questions you want to ask, you can leave them in the comments below, like Brian mentioned. You can visit our website, which is WeDon'tLift.com or WDLRacing.com. You can call us, email us, whatever is easier for you. Like I said, we're here to help you guys.
Facebook,
social media, all We Don't Lift. It's very easy to find us. Like I said, our goal is to help enthusiasts have a good time, but still know what they're up against and be safe while they're doing it, and hopefully progressing to where they want to go.
You guys have been a huge help for me and my stuff too.
No, I
You want to
appreciate
fire it
it.
up?
Yeah.
People want to hear it.
They want to hear
Fire it
it?
up real quick?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
let's
so
go around to the back.
you guys, please come to the VTECacademy.com website, buy a T-shirt so we can bring you more of these shows. Ravi is going to fire this puppy up so you can hear what it sounds like.
Give me a second. Let me just get a light back
Got
here.
a splitter on it.
Stylish entry. You practiced that, haven't you?
Get used to it over time.
You're
Use the
quick.
hazard.
Give us a second to get light back here.
He's a skinny dude too.
All right.
A lot of our neighbors have cars. They're all jealous right now.